the NHRA Power 8 Drag Racing Series. It's the most powerful sport on the planet, and for the next 30 minutes, we'll take you on a wild ride through some of the most exciting and most terrifying moments in recent memory. Strap in and hang on. You won't believe your eyes. It's madness and mayhem. It's NHRA Thrills and Spills. Welcome to this year's edition of NHRA Thrills and Spills. I'm Marty Reed, and we're at the Wally Park's NHRA Museum, where 250,000 people walk through the turnstiles each year to relive the history of this great sport. Over the next 30 minutes, we're going to relive the past few years of some of the more exciting, some of the more thrilling, and some of the more horrific moments. Remember, whether you're going over 300 miles an hour in a nitro funny car or top fuel dragster, or 200 miles strapped to two wheels called Pro Stock motorcycle, not always are things going to go the way you plan. But as you look at some of this action, and it can be horrific, remember this: not one single driver was seriously injured in any of these incidents.
And a huge crash for Dixon! Oh, Chelsea blows it up! Boy, that car was really trucking.
If you've ever been to an NHRA event, you've no doubt seen one of the most fascinating rituals in motorsport, the Top Fuel or Funny Car warm-up. Fans love the sensory overload they get when these cars roar to life and spew nitro into the air. It looks simple. Start the car, let it run, shut it down. But there's a lot more to it than that. Funny Car driver Ron Capps takes us through it, step by step.
One of the great aspects of NHRA drag racing is the fact that the fans can get close to the action. Now you'll notice a lot of fans getting around the pit area when the cars warm up. Now there's different ways of warming up. The first thing I do when I get in is I'm going to make sure I got my ignition switch off. Fuel pump is off, because what's going to happen is one of the crew members is going to have the starter on the car, and you're going to hear him spin it over. A lot like you do at the starting line, where you hear a car get spun over by a starter before they start it. What it's doing is it's blowing all the fuel out of the pipes and the cylinder heads. You want no nitro residue left in the cylinder heads. That's what happens when you see an explosion when they start it. At that point, I'll turn the ignition switch on. The starter is going to be spun over by a crew member, and he pulls the mag wires. That's going to light the car. Once it starts, I pull the fuel pump on real quick. That puts the fuel into the motor, and once it's on all the way, I'll back the motor down while Ace is doing his stuff at the front of the motor. I'll get it about where he likes it fuel pressure-wise. From there, he can fine-tune the fuel pressure as it starts up. Once he gets the idle right, he'll nod to me, and at that point, I'll let the clutch out, get the tires turning. We're doing a couple things there. We're warming up everything in the rear end. Then I'm feeling the clutch, too, to make sure it's going to go into reverse okay. Once I check reverse, I put it back into forward, and then what's going to happen is they're going to check the magnetos one at a time to make sure there's not a short in them. At that point, Ace is going to give me the nod. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to check the tug. What he tells me to do is pull the pump all the way on. I'll pull the pump on, and just like at the starting line when we're staging the car, once the pump's on, I'll wait about 1001, 1002, then I let my foot off the clutch. And that's what we call tug. You'll hear an RPM drop. After we've checked forward and reverse, Ace is going to give me the signal that we're going to get ready to check the ignition. So at that point, I'll let my foot off the clutch, get the wheels turning. Our crew guy will take the throttle cable, push it down all the way. It's not connected to the injector, but when he pushes that down all the way, my pedal goes down, pushes the button underneath it, which activates the timers like it does on a run, and actually they can check the timers and make sure they're accurate during the warm-up by that procedure. When they're done with that, I'll flip the fuel off, let the motor come up, shut itself off, and then turn the ignition off once the motor's shut off. Now once the warm-up's out of the way, I get up, get out of their hair. They don't even let me work on this thing, so I go out and sign autographs, they get everything ready, and up to the starting line we head.
There's still more thrills and spills to come. 3 drivers will tell you what it's like to be behind the wheel when all you know what breaks loose. we take a walk on the lighter side with '05 Funny Car champ Gary Selby. Welcome back to NHRA Thrills and Spills. And if you saw the '05 U.S. Nationals from Indianapolis, you saw one of the biggest controversies ever in NHRA history. In the Pro Stock Motorcycle Final, Steve Johnson squared off against Matt Smith. According to the timing and scoring system, Smith, in the near lane, tripped the beam at the finish line first. But upon viewing the video replay, it appeared as though Steve Johnson actually got there first. Well, Johnson was eventually declared the winner, but not before both drivers were subjected to an emotional roller coaster.
I am thrilled to have it at the U.S. Nationals. It's great to have a Wally.
Wow, it looks like Steve is ahead right there.
I saw the video after Graham made his announcement on TV.
We need finality in these events. We got point situations, and so the race does stand.
ESPN Truck's got all these cameras there and all different versions of racing and stuff. And he says, we're going to rewind it and we want to get your reaction. And I look in the lower corner and it's on the finish line. I'm like, we won the race. And he's like, hold on, let us show. And so I don't need to hold on, you know? So I was a little excited right then.
We saw it just like everybody else did on TV for the first time. And, you know, we knew then that there was a problem and NHRA fixed it.
26 hours later, you know, I'm thoroughly convinced that the camera was right and eyes don't lie. And you are the 51st champion of the U.S. Nationals. So it was corny, but I had a little chill when he told me that. I mean, you know, it's a big race to chase after 18 years.
300 miles an hour. It sounds fast, it looks fast, but how fast is it really? Well, fasten your seatbelt because Dave Reef has one of the best seats in the house for putting it all into perspective.
We here at ESPN are always trying to bring the power of NHRA Powerade drag racing home to you. So with videographer Matt Eilis and myself safely strapped into the back of our production truck, David Dobson, our pit producer, will take us down Route 66 Return Road at about 35 miles per hour. Behind us, you can see Doug Kalitta and Tony Schumacher. How long do you think it's going to take those guys to catch us? Not too long indeed, especially when Doug Kalitta just went 327 miles per hour. Now, we've all heard the saying about getting passed like you're standing still. That's what they were talking about.
Late in the '05 season, we saw one of the most spectacular and scary crashes perhaps in the history of the sport. During qualifying in Dallas, Bruce Allen lost control of his car, veered into the other lane, went airborne, and that's where Kenny Koretsky had full head of steam and no way of seeing Bruce Allen. Both Allen and Koretsky said they were lucky to have survived this unbelievable crash.
I really didn't see anything. It just all happened so quick, and what a testimonial to the new Jerry Bickle chassis and the safety of NHRA and the impact safety belt.
Through every incident like this, NHRA, the chassis builders, everybody sat down and go over these cars with a fine-tooth comb, and they go through and make everything this week better and try and make a better mousetrap, so to speak.
So how does a driver survive an incident like that? Well, safety is no accident, and that's not meant as a pun. The NHRA has made countless innovations in these race cars through the years to keep drivers in one piece. Every racing incident is used as a learning tool to help make these cars some of the safest in all of motorsports. Mike Dunn takes us through the evolution.
Drag racing has evolved from a performance standpoint, but also we want to talk about from a safety standpoint. I'm sitting here in a car that was built in 1950 and ran by Dick Kraft. This is one basically considered the first rail car of its time. In an effort to increase the performance, Dick decided to take everything off that he could to get the car lighter. It definitely helped do that as far as getting this car to run 114 miles per hour. But as you can see, there's not much here to protect the driver. So even though he was thinking about performance at the time, there wasn't a whole lot of thought to safety. Well, we've gone from a bug to a rat. This is a Swamp Rat 6 driven by the legendary Don Garland, the first car to officially run over 200 miles per hour. And as you can see, in 1964, it's changed by quite a bit. The driver is in an enclosed cockpit now, and you have a 3-point roll cage Also, you have, just instead of just the lap belt that we saw on the Bug, you also have shoulder harnesses to help hold the driver in that car in the event of an accident. Also, we have a parachute to stop the car. Now they're running over 200 miles per hour. It's a little harder to stop these vehicles at that speed. Now we move forward 28 years later, 1992, the first top fuel dragster to run over 300 miles per hour, Kenny Bernstein's Budweiser King. As you can see, engines obviously in the rear. You also have 2 parachutes, which is mandatory nowadays to stop these cars at those speeds. And also the driver compartment, much safer than we have had in the past years. 3-point roll cage over on the swap ramp. Budweiser King has a 6-point cage to help keep that driver safe. Also, instead of a 4-point belt system, you now have a 5-point harness system to also keep the driver from moving forward or underneath the belt in the event of an accident. Well, in the 15 years since then, the cars have added even more safety features, among them carbon fiber brakes to help slow them down, 7-point harnesses, and also most noticeable is the shielding on the back of the roll cage to help debris from getting inside the cockpit and causing injury to the driver. So as you can see that even though today's top fuel dragsters are running at over 330 miles per hour, it's still a lot safer than running 114 miles per hour back in 1950 in the Bug.
Haven't had enough crash bang action yet? Well, here's a heavy dose, courtesy of the reluctant participants at the NHRA.
Whoa! Look out! Hold on! Man, he is just living. Lifted it right off of the frame.
Unpredictable. In a word, that describes living funny car legend John Force. You never know what the champ is going to say or do. So what would a Thrills and Spills show be without a visit from the often zany, always unique John Force?
James Dean, one of my biggest sellers. Only guy around here as old as me. How are you? Where'd you get all that hair? That's some serious hair. That's some serious hair. These pictures are important. This important moment. Chelsea, I am your father.
Oh, God.
I need coffee. Show me a cup of coffee and I'll give you some. Okay, you got any questions? This is Q&A. What do you want to know?
John, how critical is that 10 points on the oil down?
Well, it makes you mad. I got no right to whine here. I'm just mad at myself. And I'm mad at you just because you're standing here.
But he didn't kiss me.
Don't go anywhere, because when NHRA Thrills and Spills comes back, we'll find out what it's like to be in front of this thing. And NHRA drivers tell us what it's like to hoist that trophy for the very first time. Welcome back to NHRA Thrills and Spills. We can't put you in the seat of a pro-stock motorcycle or a nitro-powered top fuel car, but we can take you as close as we can. Hang on, because you're going for a ride. Welcome back to NHRA Thrills and Spills. We're here in another section of the Wally Parks NHRA Museum. And this guy right here, John Force, has won more Wallies than anybody else in the sport. But I guarantee you, John can remember the moment he won his very first. And this year, we had several first-time winners.
That day, it was one of those days that, you know, that whole weekend, I just had this feeling. I seen that wind light come on, and I swear it felt like it was slow motion. You know, it just went, and it was at night, so I mean, it was just illuminating. I was probably out of that cockpit, probably still doing 200 miles per hour. I was so excited.
Well, just winning a race, it's a big deal. You know, that whole day on my first win is, you know, it was a blur. Until I heard Bernie on the radio saying, "All right, we got him." I couldn't believe it. You know, you kind of get emotional.
As you go to these final rounds, each time you think, well, is this going to be it? Well, is this going to be it? To finally break through and get that win was a huge relief, not just for myself, but for this team, for Connie, John, my sponsor. It was fantastic.
At the 2005 Mac Tools U.S. Nationals in Indianapolis, we saw one of the most frightening incidents in recent years. After a failed burnout, Tony Pedregon's funny car team attempted to lift the car's body and fix the problem. What happened next was shocking and will be forever etched in the minds of everyone who saw it.
What happened on the starting line was, in these funny cars, the throttle mechanism's very close to the body, and obviously we raise and lower the body as part of our routine up there. And we had put an extension on the throttle arm, which in turn put it closer to that body.
Unfortunately, it didn't have a lot of clearance, and I wasn't able to do a burnout, so we had communications. I was trying to tell him that the throttle was pinned. It wasn't a problem. Where the problem came, there was a little miscommunication with the crew chief. He had his hand in there. We had a guy in the front, a crew member, that was trying to lift the body, and unfortunately that linkage hung up on the body as he lifted it.
I remember going to lift the body. I do remember that point, and then the next thing I remember is loud, you know, the car rev up, and I remember the exhaust pipe or something getting real loud by my ear, and then the next thing I know, I'm laid up, and I stand up, and the car's all off on the side.
Cody was doing the right thing. He knew there was a problem. He was standing off to the side, and he wasn't going to do anything. I told him to raise the body, and history after that.
I had a handful of brake, and I don't think there was a whole lot that was going to stop the car. My biggest concern was that my crew chief didn't get hurt. The guy that was in front of the car, I think I veered to the right because I didn't want to hurt him.
The header, you know, came real close to my head, it looked like, when I was upside down. So I just don't know how I got around it.
I was falling to the ground, which seemed like I jumped off the top of a vehicle, and I was wondering how I got up that high. You know, and when that happened, it literally blew my pants off, and I sustained first, second, third degree burns on both legs from the heat.
It was scary. I was, you know, horrified, and I just made you realize don't ever underestimate, you know, what these things can do to you. Just always be aware, and I feel very fortunate that I'm still here.
Don't go away. We've still got some fuel left in the tank. Up next, lots from Gary Scelzi. He tells us what it's like when racing turns deadly serious. And Scelzi shows us his lighter side, too. The funny man and the funny car with the best and the worst of Scelzi Says. Welcome back to NHRA Thrills and Spills. Perhaps nothing is more frightening to a race car driver than fire. So what do you do when you're strapped in and your entire world just bursts into flames? 2005 funny car champ Gary Scelzi shows us.
In Houston, 2002 Friday night qualifying run, I was driving the Alan Johnson funny car and trying to make a good run because Friday night's your best run, and the car was running exceptionally well. Right down the middle of the groove, everything that a person wants to happen is happening, and all of a sudden, right at the finish line, boom, explosion, covered in orange flame. A lot of times when you're driving a fuel car, they're pulling with so much G-force that when there's a problem with the engine, it slows you down. It's a reverse G, if you will. So you have a sign, and that's when you lift. On that instance, we were driving down the road, going perfect, everything was great, the car was pulling, and all of a sudden, all hell broke loose. I think it dropped an intake valve at that time. No warning, no indication, and the next thing you know, you've got trouble on your hands. Well, when it had the big explosion, it actually blew a piece of the firewall back, which opened the cockpit area for fire. So the fire came right inside the car, which it's not supposed to do. But the explosion was so massive, it distorted the body and moved some of the safety stuff around. Couldn't see anything. Got on the brakes, got on the fire bottles, trying to get the car stopped without hitting anything. But at that time, you don't have time to actually be scared. you know what you have to do. You've got to get the car stopped, you've got to get the fire down. The car actually hopped to a stop, and on the third hop, I let go of the brake and dove out of the roof. Unbeknownst to me, the car was still rolling. When I jumped out of the roof of the car, the first step was a doozy, almost tumbled down. Ran around the front of the car to keep it from running into the wall and lifted the body because it was the only one we had until the safety spark could get there and start putting the fire out. Fortunately for us, we qualified on that run, and the next day we ran in the daylight. But still, when you get in that run, you think, here we go, you know, hopefully what we fixed is repaired and it won't do it again. But when you get down towards the finish line, it's still in your mind, is this thing gonna blow up or is everything gonna be okay? And it takes a few runs to get your confidence back when you get down to the finish line area where the accident did happen. When I saw it the next night on television and saw how massive the explosion was, I thought, wow, that was kind of scary. But, you know, when you're a race car driver, you tend to blank these things out. You know, you think about them, but it doesn't stop you from getting back in the car if you're a true racer.
Well, you've seen Gary Scelzi on his serious moments, and here at the Wally Parks NHRA Museum, of course, this is one of the many funny cars that were on display, the old Candies and Hughes flopper. This is the one Mark Oswald drove in 1983. But Gary, driving a much more updated version of Funny Car, also has had his lighter moments, as we've seen all year long in Scelzi Says.
Hey guys, we're back with another year of Scelzi Says, and I'm so excited to be with my loyal fans that have stuck with me all through the winter months. And you know what? How great is this? What's the deal?
I really appreciate it.
Wow. Honey, I think I found our new nanny. Hey, Tuna, hold this for me for a minute. Okay. Okay.
Bouncy!
All right, there's a new sheriff in town now. I got some authority. Austin Coyle, step away from the trailer. John Ford, step away from the women, please. Step away from the women now. Oh, son of a beeb. Oh yeah, baby. How about some Merlot, my little friend? Everybody knows I'm a big multitasker. Yeah, I'm signing autographs and working on the computer right now. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of things done. Next, like you guys have never done this before?
You gotta understand how the pizza's cooked. The ovens have a lot to do with it. Gary, I don't think this making pizza is for you. You better stick to driving a funny car.
You know, Joe, I think you're right. Ha! That wasn't so hard.
I don't know about you, but I can't wait to see what Gary Scelzi comes up with next year. Unfortunately, that brings us to the end of this edition of Thrills and Spills. We hope you've enjoyed it. We want to say thank you to everyone here at the Wally Parks NHRA Museum. If you're anywhere near the Pomona area, put this on your calendar. This is chock full of the history of this great sport. That's going to do it for us. We'll see you next time that we go drag racing in the NHRA Powerade Drag Racing Series. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports.